Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be reading Milk and Honey Devotional by Cambria Joy. Isaiah, a taste of transformation. O Lord, you are our Father. We are the clay, and you are our potter. We are all the work of your hand. Isaiah 64:8. I don't volunteer my heart to carry heavy things. Nevertheless, they get placed there sometimes. When we imagine going into who God created us to be, it seems we forget about the growing pains. We're not hardwired for the pain that came with the curse. We long for Eden before the fall, and feel the ache for perfection deep within our bones. But let's not be afraid for these bones to grow, even if it means enduring some pain in the night, because one day the sun will rise and never set. We're being shaped for eternity, so though our hearts sometimes carry heavy things, the strength these burdens produce in us prepares us to someday carrying unending joy. One evening, I woke up in the middle of the night after receiving news earlier that day that completely crushed my spirit. I made my way to the kitchen with teary eyes, feeling like my heart was trying to lift 1,000 pounds. My single goal right then was to make it through the night somehow. Would I make it to dawn by finally sleeping, or by staying awake with the help of caffeine? I contemplated what I should do as I looked at my favorite Monstera design mug sitting on the open shelf. Should I pour some coffee? My sleepy, throbbing head somehow stopped thinking about caffeine and took notice of this custom-made pottery created by my artist friend who hand-shaped them. I thought about how this beautiful mug, my favorite mug, started out as a lump of clay. In that state, it wasn't this pretty or useful until it landed into the potter's hand. It honestly doesn't sound very comfortable to be a lump of clay that is pressed down, thrown around, or smoothed out, and then ultimately placed into a fire. The process of becoming a useful, beautiful creation includes immense pressure and blazing heat because the clay has no ability to become anything until it yields to the potter's hands. If that clay were in my hands, it would have never turned into a mug. It would remain nothing more than a wet lump of mud. Why? Because I am not an artist, but in the right hands, it is transformed into a useful and beautiful piece of art. When we construct that in God's hands, will be made into all we were created to be. As I stood in the kitchen with my head spinning, I realized I'm on the potter's wheel. Not everything that happens to us is good, and not everything in us is good either. As we yield to the hands of the potter, what comes out of our hard-pressed hearts? Frustration, impatience, bitterness, being quick to anger, maybe all of the above. But we may remember that although we see the finished work only when it's finally on the shelf, the potter's eyes see a masterpiece in the middle of the mud. God will complete the work he begins in us because he sees the miracle, not the mess. He sees the completed work from the start. Maybe we remember that even Jesus surrenders himself to the hands of the Father, and may his prayer be on our lips too. Not my will, but yours. Luke 22:42. Jesus yielded to the weight of the cross, and when hard-pressed, what came out of him? Perfect love. I don't volunteer my heart for heavy things, but Jesus did in that order that he might lift the burdens off ours. We are being molded and transformed into the image of the one whose heart was crushed for ours, so our hearts might also take the shape of perfect love. How could an artist ever leave the clay to herself, knowing the possibilities in the hands are endless? We are the clay. He is the potter. May we recognize trials or times we're being worked on because we're clay. Let's not let our hearts be weighed down by the pressure, but let's take heart, knowing whose hands we're in.